She told me to drink up, said it was mango juice to beat the heat. Next thing I remember, I woke up at a hospital in a different city, and my entire family was boarding a private plane without me. My sister had taken my ID, my seat, and my life. But what she didn't know was that I'd wake up with full memory, a police report, and a recording. She wanted a luxurious escape. I gave her a one-way ticket to the no-fly list. Aliza had circled the date on her calendar in bright red ink. June 12th. The day her dream would come true. A 2-week, all-expenses-paid family vacation across Europe, Paris, Rome, Barcelona. Her father had entered a random sweepstakes at a shopping mall last year, more as a joke than anything serious. No one ever expected they'd win. But they had. Flights, 5-star hotels, tours, meals, everything covered. Aliza, the middle child, was more excited than anyone. She'd saved up for souvenirs, planned outfits for each city, and even learned a few basic phrases in French and Italian. She saw this trip not just as a vacation, but as a rare chance to finally bond with her family, especially her older sister Amber, who had always kept her at a distance. Amber was glamorous, popular, and fiercely private, always one step ahead of Aliza in everything, and always guarded. But something felt different the night before the trip. Amber was surprisingly warm, helping Aliza pack, giving her tips on airport security, even picking out a scarf for her to wear in Paris. Aliza had gone to bed with a hopeful heart, thinking maybe this trip will bring us closer. The next morning, they were scheduled to leave for the airport by 9 a.m. Aliza woke up early, too excited to sleep. She showered, dressed, and wheeled her suitcase downstairs. Amber was already in the kitchen, humming to herself while preparing drinks. "Want some mango juice?" Amber asked, her voice light and friendly, holding out a glass filled with a cold, golden yellow liquid. Aliza took it without hesitation. "Thanks. I needed this." She drank it fast, the sweetness coating her tongue. 10 minutes later, her vision blurred. Her limbs turned to jelly. Her knees buckled as she reached for the banister, but her hand slipped. Darkness crashed in around her. When Aliza opened her eyes again, everything was different. She was lying in a hospital bed, her mouth dry, her body aching. A nurse stood beside her with a clipboard, asking for her identification. My ID?" Aliza whispered, her voice weak. The nurse frowned. "You were brought in unconscious. No phone, no wallet, no passport. We were hoping you could tell us who you are." Confused, Aliza slowly sat up. Her head throbbed. She looked around the sterile, unfamiliar room, trying to make sense of what had happened. Where was her family? Why was she here? Then a chilling thought. She remembered the mango juice. The strange warmth in Amber's voice. The way her sister had smiled, almost too sweet, too perfect. It hit her like a brick to the chest. Amber did this. Her own sister. She had drugged her. Stolen her passport, wallet, and phone. Left her behind like she was nothing. Aliza's hands clenched the hospital blanket. Her heart pounded in her ears, not from fear, but from rage. Hot, blinding betrayal twisted inside her. The trip had already begun. Her parents and Amber were likely on a flight over the Atlantic right now, smiling, taking selfies, sharing them online like everything was perfect. And here she was, abandoned in a hospital, humiliated, with no ID, no money, and no one. Her sister hadn't just taken away a vacation. She had stolen trust, love, and family in one cruel move. And Aliza knew this wasn't an accident. This was calculated, premeditated. Amber wanted her out of the way.
But why?
The question echoed in Aliza's mind, but one truth rang louder. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The minutes bled into hours like slow poison. Aliza sat upright in the hospital bed, her body weak, but her mind racing. She kept glancing at the door, hoping it would swing open, that her father would rush in, eyes filled with worry, that her mother's voice would tremble as she apologized, telling her there'd been a mistake, a mix-up at the airport. That Amber, even Amber, would walk in and say she didn't mean for things to go this far. But no one came. No calls. No texts. No missed messages. Just silence. After the third hour, Eliza broke. She borrowed the nurse's phone and called her father. Straight to voicemail. She tried her mother. Then Amber. Then her brother. Nothing. It was like they had all disappeared, or worse, had deliberately shut her out. Her hands trembled as she clutched the phone. Please, she whispered, blinking back tears. Just let this be some horrible mistake. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. Something wasn't right. Fueled by panic and desperation, she did something she never thought she would. She begged the hospital staff for help. After much pleading, one of the security guards agreed to check the CCTV footage from earlier that morning. The footage played on a small monitor in a back office. Eliza stood between the guard and a nurse, barely breathing. Then she saw it. Her sister, Amber, calm, collected, sunglasses perched on her nose, walking confidently out of the hospital, dragging Eliza's suitcase behind her. She wore Eliza's favorite denim jacket, the one with a heart-shaped patch near the elbow. Her phone was in Amber's hand. Her backpack was slung across Amber's shoulder. Amber even paused at the exit, smiled at someone off-camera, and walked out. Eliza felt her stomach drop. It wasn't just betrayal. It was theft. Erasure. Amber had stolen her identity. And the worst part? She wasn't alone. Another camera angle showed Eliza's younger brother helping load the luggage into the car. Her father stood nearby, glancing at his watch impatiently. Her mother sat inside the vehicle, staring at her phone like she had better things to do. Eliza's hand shot to her mouth. They all knew. It wasn't a last-minute decision. It wasn't Amber going rogue. Her whole family had planned it. They had stood there, watched her lie unconscious in a hospital bed, and left her behind like she was nothing, like she didn't exist. Eliza couldn't speak. Her voice had vanished. Her breath came in shallow gasps as the reality settled over her like a coffin lid. She had been cut out, not by strangers, but by the people who were supposed to love her. For years, she had tried to be the good daughter, the helpful sister. She had swallowed insults, made sacrifices, smiled through the dismissals and backhanded comments. Always hoping one day they'll see me. One day I'll be enough. That day never came. And now she finally understood. She was never meant to come. Her suitcase, her ticket, her dreams, taken and handed to someone else. The betrayal didn't crush her. It forged her. They thought she'd break, that she'd crumble in silence, like she always did. But they underestimated her. She wasn't the fragile girl they could cast aside anymore. Something inside her had shifted. Something cold, sharp, and unbreakable. As she stared at the paused footage of her sister walking away in her clothes, her identity, her place, Eliza made a silent vow. They would regret this. She wouldn't just get revenge. She would rewrite the story they tried to erase her from. And when she was done, they wouldn't remember her as the forgotten one. They'd remember her as the storm they never saw coming. Returning home was like walking into a mausoleum. Every framed photo, every trinket on the shelves, every familiar smell in the hallway mocked her with memories of a family that had discarded her like yesterday's trash. But Eliza wasn't here to mourn. She was here to dig. And she started with the travel agency. Sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, she called the agency's customer service line. Her voice was calm but assertive, laced with just the right amount of urgency. Hi, I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Irfan Malik. He's currently abroad and asked me, his assistant, to verify some travel adjustments. Could I get the recent modification logs on our family booking? A few security questions later, the representative, unaware he was speaking to the very person erased from the itinerary, emailed her the logs. Eliza's heart pounded as she scanned the document. There it was. A timestamp, June 11th, 11:42 p.m. Under passenger name change, her name, Eliza Malik, had been replaced by Amber Malik. Seat number, meal preference, even the baggage tag. All updated just 9 hours before departure. Her throat tightened, but she didn't cry. She scrolled further. Attached was an audio recording of the call used to justify the change. She hit play. Amber's voice slithered through the speakers like venom wrapped in silk. Yes, we need to modify, one of the travelers. Aliza Malik. She won't be joining. She's unfortunately not mentally stable at the moment. We're concerned she could cause distress on the flight. A pause. You know how unpredictable she can be. It's better for everyone. The agent on the other end merely replied, Understood. Aliza stared at the screen, breath caught in her chest. Amber hadn't just lied. She'd weaponized a false mental illness claim, something Aliza had confided about years ago during a vulnerable moment. Amber had filed that trust away, saved it like ammunition. And now she had used it to erase her. That was the spark. Aliza's fingers trembled as she copied the audio file and downloaded the log. Her thoughts moved quickly. No more tears. No more hoping they'd do the right thing. They wouldn't. So she would. Within the hour, she contacted an aviation attorney through an online legal platform. She shared the audio, the altered booking logs, and her version of the events. The attorney responded quickly. This is serious. What they did crosses into criminal territory. Identity theft, fraudulent impersonation, and falsification of travel documentation. We'll start by filing a report. But Aliza didn't stop there. She filed a formal identity theft complaint, including all the evidence, and forwarded the documents to the Department of Homeland Security, referencing potential travel fraud and passenger impersonation on international flights. By the next morning, the report had been acknowledged. Her attorney confirmed that DHS would now flag Amber for security review. Amber had taken her place. Now Aliza was taking back her voice, her name, and her power, but with precision. She didn't want to make a scene. She wanted a record. A record that would follow Amber through airports, immigration checks, government databases. A record that wouldn't go away with an apology. Every lie her family had told, now typed, transcribed, filed. This wasn't revenge for a ruined vacation anymore. It was war. And Aliza wasn't just coming back. She was coming back smarter, louder, and with the law on her side. They tried to delete her. Now, she would write her name where it could never be erased again. It started with a quiet ping in Aliza's inbox. An email from the Transportation Security Administration. Your report has been reviewed. Case escalation in progress. Then came Customs and Border Protection. Further investigation initiated. Thank you for your cooperation. Next was the airline's own security division. Each notification was like the strike of a match. One by one, the dominoes tipped, each agency doing exactly what Aliza had hoped, taking her seriously. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, Amber was basking in the glow of her stolen paradise, posting selfies from Paris cafes, captioning them with quotes about self-love and deserved breaks. But her world was about to crack. It happened during a layover in France. Amber had just passed through the duty-free shop when two airport security officers approached her.
Calm but firm.
They asked to see her passport, then requested she step aside for a routine verification. Amber's hands shook as they led her into a small interview room near the terminal. She was questioned for hours. Who had booked her ticket? Why was the name on the reservation changed at the last minute? Was she aware that someone had filed an identity theft complaint tied to her itinerary? Amber stammered through the interrogation. Her French was poor, and her confidence crumbled. The more she tried to explain, the more suspicious she sounded. Finally, in a full-blown panic, she was allowed a single call. She dialed Aliza. When Aliza saw Amber's name flash across her phone screen, she let it ring once.
Twice.
Then picked up. Amber's voice was frantic, trembling. Aliza, please. I didn't mean for this to happen. I just wanted the spotlight, for once. You always get everything. I just wanted a chance to shine. Aliza didn't scream, didn't argue. She spoke calmly, coldly. You'll get the spotlight, Amber. Don't worry. A pause. In the worst way possible. Then she hung up. But Aliza wasn't finished. Back in the US, she sent an anonymous tip to her father's company, an internationally known energy firm that prided itself on ethical global presence. She informed them that their senior manager had misused corporate prize funds for a family vacation. The funds had been allocated for a charity raffle, not a personal luxury tour. Within days, the company launched an internal audit. Emails were checked. Expense reports cross-referenced. A pattern of entitlement emerged, one that implicated not just Elise's father but others in the department. But it was his name on the paperwork, his signature that greenlit the ticket substitutions. And just like that, he was suspended without pay, pending investigation. Elisa watched it all unfold from her quiet little apartment. She didn't gloat. She observed.
Documented.
Because this wasn't revenge for revenge's sake. This was accountability. Amber had stolen her place. Her identity.
Her dignity.
Her father had endorsed it.
Covered it.
Lied about it. And now the consequences were catching up. Not in whispers, but in spotlights. The very thing Amber had craved. And they hadn't seen anything yet. Amber's return wasn't the homecoming she imagined. There were no hugs, no family waiting with balloons or tears of relief, just two uniformed TSA officers, a pair of cold metal cuffs, and a flight manifest marked with a red flag. She was pulled off the plane the moment it landed. At the immigration checkpoint, an agent handed her a folded document. She opened it with shaking fingers, and the words struck like a hammer to the chest. You are now permanently banned from international travel under false identity usage and fraudulent documentation. Amber barely remembered being escorted through the terminal. The cameras clicked. She kept her face down. The spotlight she once craved now burned like acid on her skin. Word spread quickly. By the time the court date arrived, reporters hovered outside the courthouse, hungry for a headline. Sister impersonates sibling to travel Europe, family fraud exposed. Elisa arrived alone, dressed in a navy blazer and quiet determination. She carried a file, the same one she had built over weeks. Call recordings, travel logs, identity theft reports, airline footage. Every lie cataloged. Every betrayal filed. Inside the courtroom, Amber sat at the defendant's table, wrists free now but spirit crushed. Her hair was tied back tightly. Her face was pale, lips trembling. Her lawyer whispered something, but she wasn't listening. Behind her, the rest of the family sat in silence, her father, suspended and humiliated. Her mother, hiding behind oversized sunglasses. Her brother, eyes glued to the floor. Not one of them dared look at Elisa. When Elisa took the stand, the courtroom held its breath. She spoke clearly. She played the recording, Amber's voice lying to the travel agent. She showed the surveillance footage of her sister walking out in her clothes. She handed over the documents showing the name swap, the false claims of instability, the coordinated abandonment. The courtroom watched Amber shrink with every exhibit. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. The judge turned to Elisa, glasses perched low on his nose. Ms. Malik, given the severity of the offenses, you have the right to press full criminal charges. Do you wish to proceed? Elisa looked across the room. At Amber, now a shadow of the smug, self-assured sister who had once told a stranger that she was unstable. At her parents, who had stood silently while their daughter was erased. At the brother who had helped load her luggage like it meant nothing. And then she smiled. A slow, calm, powerful smile. No, Your Honor, she said. I don't want her behind bars. The judge blinked. May I ask why? Because I want her to live with it, Elisa replied. Every job interview, every international trip she can't take. Every time someone runs a background check. Every time she meets someone new, she'll have to explain why she's on a federal no-fly list for identity fraud. Not just once. Forever. A hush fell over the courtroom. Amber's shoulders sagged. She didn't cry. She just sat there, frozen, as if reality had finally caught up to her. This wasn't a single punishment. It was a permanent stain, one she couldn't delete, hide, or escape from. As the session adjourned, Elisa walked past her family without a glance. For the first time in her life, they weren't in control.
She was.
They had erased her once.
But now?
Her name was the one that would be remembered, just not for being forgotten. Months passed, but the ripple effects of Elisa's storm never stopped echoing. Her family's silence had become permanent. There were no more calls, no messages begging for forgiveness, no awkward attempts to reconnect. And Elisa preferred it that way. She had rebuilt her life, on her own terms. It started with a single blog post, titled "The Vacation I Was Never Meant to Take." It detailed everything: the betrayal, the erasure, the courtroom silence, and the quiet triumph that followed. She didn't name names, but the story was raw, honest, and unflinching. Within days, the post went viral. Comment sections flooded with messages, strangers, mostly women, sharing their own wounds. Stories of being cast aside by families, manipulated by siblings, doubted and gaslit for years. Elisa had unknowingly tapped into something larger than revenge, a shared, silenced pain that finally had a voice. The blog grew quickly. She named it Grounded No More. What started as a space for healing transformed into a hub for travel tips, self-recovery, and personal power. Airlines reached out for partnerships. Magazines requested interviews. Influencers asked to collaborate. Elisa wasn't just moving on. She was taking off. She booked her first solo trip to Greece just 6 months after the court case ended. Then Italy. Then Morocco. In every city, she snapped photos with her camera, captioning them with messages like, "Your wings don't need permission." The girl who once sat in a hospital bed, abandoned, without a passport or a voice, was now walking ancient cobblestone streets, her smile bright, her step unshaken. And Amber? She worked at a strip mall sandwich shop on the edge of town. The TSA flag made sure she couldn't travel out of state without triggering a security alert. Every time she applied for a new job, the background check pulled up the fraud case. Every airport she entered would flash red. She had become a cautionary tale. Her parents, once loud, proud, and overbearing, now barely spoke in public. The shame followed them like a shadow they could never outrun. Former friends avoided them. Coworkers gossiped behind their backs. Invitations stopped arriving. The social reputation they once prized had crumbled like a house of cards. And Elisa? She didn't care. She wasn't looking back. Her victories were not loud, but they were visible, measured not in followers or flight miles, but in freedom. Freedom from needing their approval. Freedom from shrinking herself. Freedom from the lie that her worth depended on how much space they gave her. She flew now, emotionally, mentally, and literally. And the best part? She never needed to steal someone else's spotlight to shine. Because hers had been burning all along. They just didn't want to see it.
But now?
The world did. And it never looked away again. If you've ever been left behind, lied to, or silenced by your own blood, remember, justice doesn't always require vengeance. Sometimes, all it takes is evidence, courage, and a plan. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that betrayal may set you back, but it also gives you the runway to rise.